Check, 1, 2, 2, check.
Sorry? How's it going, Abby?
We'll just have homework for them when they come back.
Why do you make more? Oh, okay. Well, kids wake up early.
All right. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Adults. All right, good morning, everyone. We need to get going and start our study for this morning. So glad you guys are here today. I don't want to stop I really don't want to stop the fellowship that we have, but good morning. But here we are. There's no classes down there, if that's where she's going. So, your books are in. The hard copy book and then the workbook, they're in right now. If you take a copy, just make sure you check off your name so I know that you got your copy of that. There might be a couple extra. I don't know if we have some other people that have showed up this Sunday. If I need to buy more, that is not a problem. I will get you your copies of that. So make sure you just check off your name, grab your copy, your book and workbook. Go ahead and go over through chapter 1 this week. And what's the most important thing I want you to do as well? Read the book, but also go talk to your spouse would be nice. Yes, talking. Talk. You didn't know that was part of it? Talk to them, man. But seriously, make sure you go through your workbook together, and the more effort you put there, the more you can get out of the class, right? And so we'll start next week. We'll look at some of those things from chapter 1, discuss them, see what you thought, want your discussion within this. What are some of the things that you saw? What are some of the things you had difficulties with, and we'll go from there, okay? Any questions? Y'all having a good week? Everyone loving the heat? Ugh, I don't like any. It is a little cooler. It was nice. It was nice. Front row. Morning. No, I got back up, but that's fine. Y'all repenting already, or are you okay?
We're just late, so we'll be fine.
Get here early. Get the back row, don't you guys? In the back. All right. What did we cover last week? Do you guys remember what we covered? Where did we start? Yeah, we started in Genesis. That's where the beginning of everything is. And this is when God brings two people together. This is where marriage happens. This is when two people become one flesh. We talked about that briefly. It's not talking about sexuality only. When he's talking about that, there is a spiritual sense to this. Physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. Two people become one. They become one entity. And we talked about that from the very, very beginning. What else did we cover last week?
John, I had two takeaways.
You had two takeaways. Go ahead.
One, Adam had no other option.
Yeah.
We have no other option. I mean, if we don't choose Christ, there's not something else out there.
Yeah.
And two, God, I mean, their sin didn't sever the relationship. It hurt it.
Yes.
God still made it work.
I love that. So yeah, the two takeaways. You didn't have another choice. Was it you that I was talking to last week? It's like, what happened if she had like an annoying quality? That was you? I was like, what happened if Eve had like a really annoying, or Adam had an annoying quality the other one didn't like? You don't have options to go out and, play the field. But I know what you're saying. It's a little more deeper than that. That it's
Our relationship.
absolutely. It's going, yeah, and that's what we're going to hopefully get to today when we get to Ephesians today. If I think we have to get that far at least. So, but yeah, remember what we talked about last week as well. This is a God-centered relationship, not just between man and woman, but very, very God-centered. Everything is God-centered. And so, and I like your second comment. Yes, sin is going to enter into this. So this is Genesis chapter 3. It doesn't break the relationship. God is going to be able to use this to even have them growing closer as well. And so that's two great takeaways. Good morning. Front row, you're right. So we did get to Genesis chapter 3. And what happens in Genesis chapter 3? Thank you, Sally. The fall of man. Yeah, we have sin coming into the world. And we talked about this briefly last week. And in chapter 2, I want to wrap my head around how close this relationship was between Adam and Eve. And we can talk about it. We can hypothesize about it. We can try to figure out in our mind what it would be like to have no sin at all in our relationship between the two of us. And you know what? You can't fathom it, right? You can think about it. You can break it down. You can have some of those thoughts. But to truly understand that, I don't know. Will we ever know? Not on this earth, right? And so now sin has come into the world. This is what we do know. This is what we can associate with. This is what we can understand even within our marriages, within our culture, within our society, within everything. Sin is now a part of this. And so Adam and Eve commit sin. They eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and there's going to be consequences. And we briefly looked at those last week. And we see that now the relationship changes. It doesn't mean there's lesser worthiness within the man and woman, but there is a difference in their relationship. The man is going to be the head of the household. We can go to 1 Corinthians 11, but I would have you to know that the head of every man is Christ, the head of every woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Ephesians chapter 5, 22 and 23, wives, submit to your husbands as to your own submit yourselves to your own husbands as unto the Lord. The husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. And later on, we're going to be able to look at those and break those down a little bit more. But there's something different within the relationship, right? Something has changed. And again, it's not broken. I really like what you were saying, Susan. It's not broken. This is going to be able to bring them even closer together. And I don't have the time right now. It will come out through our study together. But it's not just a punishment. I don't see this as, oh, you messed up, so here's your punishment. There is a reason and there is a purpose for what God does. And as we go through this, and especially when we look through this Love and Respect book, and as we look at these passages even in deeper detail, you're going to find there's a deeper purpose in what God is trying to show us within the marriage, so that we're able to teach the next generation. I believe somebody talked about that last week, how important it was for them to teach the next generation of what a marriage needs to look like. And how do we understand God? How do we understand Christ and what they've done for us? It's going to be demonstrated actually within marriage. And I believe we're going to see that. Is marriage important to God? Yes or no? Scripture. What scripture would you use?
The fact that he established it.
Okay, so yeah, going back to Genesis chapter 2, because he established it. Anything else? The importance of marriage.
What's the reflection of Christ in the people?
Right, okay. We're going to talk about these in a little bit more detail, but I love using Matthew chapter 19. Jesus is going to be questioned by someone and said, is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause? You go back in the Old Testament, it was very, do you know how easy it was to divorce your wife? Huh?
You can't compare it up.
Yeah, it was, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. Done, done, and done. Man, that would come in handy these days, right? No, I'm just kidding. But this is what Jesus says in response. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. So in the Old Testament, Moses is going to give you the ability and the opportunity to divorce, okay? It's going to be lawful, but he says, what God has joined together, let no man separate. Hold on for a second. Where is he quoting from? It's Old Testament, right? Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, and let you think about that. Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous. What is he saying there about marriage? What's the Hebrew writer saying? It's sacred. This is something that's not supposed to be broken by anybody else. This is something that is established by God for man and woman to be together. Anybody have a passage they're thinking of yet?
Ecclesiastes.
Yes, read it. Yeah. That's where I was going next.
Ecclesiastes 4.
Yeah.
This is the case of a man who is all alone without child or a brother, yet who works hard to gain as much wealth as he can. But then he asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It is also meaningless and depressing. Two people are better off than one, so they can help each other succeed. If a person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you starting to read earlier, because it really brought about the whole being alone. And then you come to verses 9 through 9 through 12. It really talks about, you know the passage. What was that telling you? You heard her read it.
We weren't meant to be.
Okay, yeah, we're not meant to be alone. What are the examples that's found in that passage? What are the examples? Yep, okay, that's the very end. Especially, and it's really not just talking about two people being braided together, but it's that third. And I've always used if I ever use it in a marriage ceremony or something, I always talk about how God is that third cord that really and truly binds them all together. But the examples before that, what were the examples? Just stay warm. Yeah, two people can stay warm. You know, if you're out in the cold, and you guys don't understand that at all down here, but if you're out in the cold and you're in your trap, but two people can keep each other warm, right? What else? What do you mean by strength?
Two people working together are stronger than one by themselves.
Yeah, they won't be overcome.
Right.
Right. So if you're by yourself, and that can really preach a lot. If you're by yourself, you can be overcome by various things. But two people together, it's not so easy. Other than the Hackett's, anybody else listen to the passage? Yeah, don't you love that whole mentality? If one person falls, do you ever fall in life? Do you ever make mistakes you need help with?
Yes.
Thank you, Fort Worth, that you said that.
I was just going to say there's physical falling, but then there's also emotional.
Sure.
We beat ourselves up. I can't do it. It's too hard. But when you have an encourager with you, and you can help each other to stay on track.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. I cannot tell you the number of times when I was weak, I found my wife strong. When she was weak, I was the one that was able to be there to be strong for that relationship. And it's a give and take all the way through marriage. And so you find all of these concepts within this, we're designed to be together. Now, is it unlawful or is it bad in somebody's eyes if you're single? No, absolutely not. There's people out there that have chosen to be single to be able to work in the Lord's church, right? Doesn't Paul talk about that? Yeah, he does. And he says it's a good thing because then you can focus on what we need to get done within the Lord's church. And so you don't have other things that you have to take care of, such as a wife or a husband or children, etc. So it's not unlawful, but we are designed to be together. When you go all the way back into the Old Testament and through, you're going to find marriage is actually a very blessed thing. Out of the 10 Commandments, how many refer to the marriage covenant? Where are the 10 Commandments found? Okay, go ahead and go there. Exodus chapter 20. That's fine. Exodus chapter 20. All right, so when we get there and you're looking at the 10 Commandments, how many of those are referred to the marriage covenant? Who said that Exodus? Oh, I'm in Genesis. Sorry. I apologize. All right, I'll read them, and then you tell me how many, okay? Because I can hear them mumbling. And God spoke these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carven image or any likeness to things that are in heaven above, or is in the earth beneath, or in the water underneath the earth. You shall not bow to them or serve them, for I am the Lord your God, and I am a jealous God, visiting iniquity on the fathers of the children of the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor, do all your work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. You or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your livestock or sojourner who is within your gates. For 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and the sea and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother all the days that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is in his neighbor's. Now, when all the people saw the thunder and flashes of lightning, and on and on. All right, out of the 10, how many?
Directly one.
Directly one. Okay, I'll give you that. Do not commit adultery. I would kind of say maybe 2. When I look at verse 17, so do you guys understand what adultery is? Let's make sure we're on the same page. What is it? Define it. Cheating. Okay. Okay, we're talking about,
Well, Jesus says.
there's just so many young people in here.
Jesus says even looking at someone lust.
Right. We can take it to that point where we are breaking our covenant to where our hearts and our minds are not even with our husband or our wife anymore, for sure. But that committing adultery is to having sexual relations outside of your marriage, right? That is a sin, okay? Look at verse 17. You're not even supposed to covet your neighbor's wife. This kind of goes back to what you were saying, Sally. What Jesus is pulling on is not just committing adultery, but he's saying, no, don't even have that lust after that other person. We're not supposed to covet. When you hear the word covet, do you have another word in your version? Do you not covet? Do you have anybody else? Is it all covet in all the versions? Okay. What does covet mean? Lusting. Anything else?
Jealousy.
Jealous? What do you mean by that? Talk about
That you look at someone, what someone else says, and you kind of compare yourself to them. Well, they don't deserve that. I should have that. I want that.
Yeah. Or you're comparing what you have. You go, man, I would like that. You know, your next door neighbor's car. I'm driving a junker, but I sure would like that car. You know, and you're desiring it. So I'm not comparing.
You married relationship to be coveting another's wife. You could be married and coveting, but you could also be single.
Yeah.
Coveting what somebody else has.
That's true. Is there another one that you can put in here?
Honor your father and mother.
Yeah. I'm about to put some people in timeout.
Know their God is working.
Oh, why would you put that one in there? It wasn't on mine.
You can very much put your wife or husband above the Lord.
Okay.
It's easier to do.
Well, she's so high in my list. It's right there. Right beside the dog. I mean, it's right there.
You're going to be sharing a house with the dog.
We got a doggy door. We're good. I can come in the house whenever I want. But you're right. I like that. I wasn't on my radar, but I do like the concept. But that the father and mother too as well. We're talking about relationship. We're talking about marriage, and this is actually part of that. When you become a family and within your marriage, you become a mother and a father. And so you're also picking up on those concepts. What's interesting to me is that when God looked at these commandments and said, hey, if you're going to be my people, you're going to be set apart from this world, this is what you're going to look like. And a lot of it deals with the family. Pretty crazy, isn't it? So what sets us apart is how our families interact. And the answer is yes. Because how does this world look at marriage?
Disposable.
It's disposable now, right? You're in timeout. I love you, but I gotta give me. Those of you who have never been in my class, I put you in timeout. It's not that I don't like you. It's not that I don't love you. I just want to get more people involved as well. And he knows this. I put him in timeout before.
He's been in timeout before.
Yeah, I was thinking about putting caps on people, but I thought that would be rude. But the world looks at marriage and relationships as disposable. When you're done, toss it out, right? And God says that's not the way it is. That man and wife become one, and you're supposed to remain together, okay? And so, and we have this. So when you look at the Ten Commandments, there's, when you, still in the Old Testament, there's books in the Old Testament that we can talk about, right? Have you got, how many of you in here, by raising your hands, read the Song of Solomon? Actually, more than I expected. It's the no-no book, right? We don't know why God talked about these things, right? In my Bible, there's a lot of underlined scriptures, and my Bible is full of that. You know one book that's not underlined a whole lot? I don't go to the no-no book very much, right? But we're very uncomfortable with that book. But what's the point? Just in your own words, what's the point of Song of Solomon? It's a beautiful book.
God's relationship with the people.
It's God's relationship with people, but what else? Deep intimacy between...
I was going to say the sheets, but I think you mean
Let's just move on. I don't want to. I will not repeat what she said. You can ask her afterwards. I'm gonna read, but I should have just read this. I should have just read the quote. I told myself to read the quote. God's approval of rapturous, blessed human relationships in marriage is what somebody said. I like that, especially the word rapturous. Solomon, in all his wisdom, has recorded for us the emotions that accompany true love. It's a beautiful book. And I would actually recommend reading it with your spouse. But I bring it up. I bring up the Song of Solomon to just demonstrate how important God sees this relationship, of how beautiful this relationship is, how intimate this relationship really is between man and woman, between husband and wife. And God blesses this. And I really want us to understand that as we come out of this. Let's go to the New Testament. Jesus talks about it as well. We already briefly looked at it, but I want to go to Matthew chapter 19. Matthew chapter 19. When you look at verses 9 through 12. And I say to you, let's go a little earlier than this. Verse 3. Let's look at verse 3. Matthew 19, starting in verse 3. And Pharisees came up to him and tested him by asking, is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause? What's the actual answer to that? For the people at the time. The answer is yes. Right? So if he says no, what is he speaking out against? What is Jesus speaking out against if he says no? Okay, what's interesting, it's really not God's law. It's what man put into place later on, because he's even going to say here, he's going to say it in just a second. I'll read it. Yeah, verse 7, Moses said, and why then did Moses command one to give a certificate of divorce to and send her away? And that's what they're going to say to them. So this was a Moses thing. Yes, he's speaking for God. Yes, he's the leader of God. But when you look back in the very beginning, you can notice something, and what we have noticed, we could spend a whole lot more time in the Old Testament, that it wasn't supposed to be like that. And we're going to see that. Jesus is going to answer in verse 4. Have you not read that he who created them from the very beginning made them male and female? And he said, therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. So talk to me about that passage. So the Pharisees come and understand what's going on. They're trying to trap him, put that to the side. But they ask this question, is it not lawful to divorce your wife? In our culture, not a big deal. You know, whenever you want to throw that away, you can throw that away. We can talk about that even a little bit more. Well, you know what? I want to ask you that question. Why do you think it's gotten to that point? Why do you think our culture and our society has gotten to the point of a throwaway marriage?
God isn't the center of anything anymore.
Okay.
Why would it be the center of marriage?
Okay, so let's go with that for a second. Talked about the very beginning, right? God-centered. Marriage is God-centered. Okay, you take God out. So we say those words in this room, and we understand that right away, right? Like God-centered, not God-centered, etc. Now, but you need to explain that to me. Like, I don't understand that. I am somebody in this world. I don't know everything. I know there's a God. I might know there's like a Jesus. But when you tell me, when you take God out of marriage, what are you left with? So explain that to me in basic terms.
A lot of it is about, nowadays, marriages are about happiness.
Okay.
It no longer makes me happy.
Okay?
It's more of a commitment to happiness, not just to each other.
Okay, so God-centered says,
Beyond.
it's beyond you make me feel good, I love you, right? How does the world use that term, I love you? It's a feeling, not an action. And if it's not reciprocated, then I'm not loved. If I'm not loved, what happens? I'm out. So going back to what you were saying, Dallas, so you're telling me that a God-centered relationship is a commitment, no matter what. Not based on emotions, but it's based on our commitment. So what does that mean, based on commitment? I agree 100%. We wake up in the morning, I said, I'm with my wife, right? I'm committed to her.
I saw something the other day that I won't comment anymore because I know you don't want to.
I am about to vote out there, so that's fine.
But there was a news story on the Today Show the other morning about a couple in Hollywood that had been married for like over 25 years.
Mhm.
And they asked them, what's your secret? And they said, we took the word divorce out of our vocabulary.
Yeah,
And it was a news story. It just amazed me because that's something that when you have that commitment, when you have that covenant,
Mhm.
you automatically take that out.
Yeah.
This isn't going to break.
yeah,
But in the world, when a couple comes out and says they're going to do that, it becomes newsworthy.
yeah. It's newsworthy when somebody is not going to divorce them. It's so common to our society. Anything else?
As Christians, we wake up each day and we are committed to God and to Christ. And so that should be reflected in each of our
Yeah,
decisions and each of our relationships, but especially marriage.
absolutely.
So for us, that committed word, devoted, however you want
Yeah.
to word it, is really nothing new. So through the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, the feelings, good, bad, and different, we're committed
Right,
in a lot of different areas.
right.
You were about to say something.
I was, but I have it in my notes, so go ahead.
Our modern society has become overall very lazy. And if you look at our modern conveniences
Yeah.
versus what our grandparents and great-grandparents had, I'm talking about outside of marriage here, just in general.
Right,
But this does involve it.
right.
They've gotten very lazy. Things used to be hard and they used to be understood. Now, because of all of our conveniences, things get hard. We have an out, we look for an exit, or there's another option, there's another way. And we have lost that idea of when you get into something, whether it's a new job or a new marriage or parenthood or a new stage of life, it's going to be hard for a little bit. And you're going to have to tough it out. You're going to have to lean on God. And you're going to have to dig in.
Mhm. Yeah.
That seems to be a lost mindset.
Yeah. What about you younger generation in the back? What are y'all thinking? Good morning. You guys are witnessing it with all of your friends. Let you think about it. Come back to me in a minute if you
Well,
want.
one more thing, I totally agree with Justin because, and to sound like an old man, I can see the way young people date nowadays. And even when I was single, how young people dated and what went on when young people were just dating was like, that's marriage level stuff. Like why? But it's lazy.
Yeah.
Because I want the benefits of marriage, but I also want an out. So why get married?
Yeah, and it's happening at all the levels too, right? I mean, I look at people my age and I ask myself, why are we not committed to this incredible blessing that is from God? So they come back and they ask, and what Jesus does, he goes back to the Genesis account, doesn't he? He goes from the very beginning, God created one flesh. So what God has, and this is interesting. He says, what God has joined together. So God sent it. If this is something that God created, what God has made together, let no man separate. Then they said to him, then why did Moses command one to give a certificate of divorce and to send her away? What's his answer? Verse 8, read it and tell me what his answer is. Because of your hardness of heart. Because Moses allowed you to divorce your wives, because from the beginning it was not so. And I said to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery. Well, he just brought something to the table, didn't he? And so he said, at one time, it was because of the hardness of your heart. Now, this is what I want. This is what I need. And he says, and Jesus says, when you have made a commitment, it's not about you anymore. I want to quickly go to Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 7, and we'll try to get to Ephesians today if it happens. 1 Corinthians 7. What's going on in the church in Corinth? What's going on in the church in Corinth? Not the church itself, but tell me about society and culture of Corinth. Very pagan. You want to... Anybody else? Anybody on this side of the room having coffee yet? And you want to jump out on something? I'm messing with you. Just go ahead and tell me about Corinth a little bit more. It is pagan.
Is it a port city?
It is. Yeah.
There's a lot of different religions and ethnicities, and it's very, very diverse.
Okay, very, yeah, there's going to be, the polytheism is huge. But is there anything in particular about the certain gods that they serve in Corinth? Come on, Reed. I know you got answers. Fire away.
Well, it's, yeah, it's one of the
Oh, that was interesting.
So there's one of the seven wonders of the ancient world was the cult of Artemis.
Yes.
And so it was this cult that was, quite frankly, it was led by women, and it was Artemis was a female person, but it was a celebration in quotes of this polygamy that was going on, but it was very much we're going to put down men and male as much as we possibly can. We're going to uplift women as much as we can, and it infiltrated the whole society there.
It did. Does sexuality play a big part of that? Either one, Mr. and Mrs. Reed?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Come on.
Once a year, they had this ritual where they would take the image of Artemis down to the sea and wash her so she was named Virgin again. And then on the way back, they would do pretty much anything that they think of to hypersexualize and celebrate her fertility.
It's hard to talk about it with little kids in here, isn't it? But it's just kidding. Thank you. That's really, really good. That is what's going on. So the church, do you think this is bothering the church or infiltrated the church or has some of the problems within the church? Well, of course. This is your culture. This is what you possibly could be born and raised in this area. So you're out of timeout. I forgot to tell you, but you've been out of timeout for a while. So we come to this passage, and what Paul is coming back to, because I want to understand this marriage covenant again and what's so important. So look at, somebody read verses 9 through 20 for me. I know it's a lengthy reading. I think that's where I wanted to start.
What chapter?
7, chapter 7.
But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. To the married I give this command, not I but the Lord. A wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried, or else be reconciled to her husband, and a husband must not divorce his wife. To the rest I say this, I, not the Lord. If any brother has a wife who is not a believer, and she is willing to live with him, you must not divorce her. And if a woman has a husband who is not a believer, and he is willing to live with her, she she must not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband has been sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife has been sanctified through her believing husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but as it is, they are holy. But if the unbeliever leaves, let it be so. The brother or the sister is not bound in such circumstances. God has called us to live in peace. How do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? Or how do you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? Nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them, just as God has called them. This is the rule I lay down in all the churches. Was a man already circumcised when he was called? He should not become uncircumcised. Was a man uncircumcised when he was called? He should not be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing. Keeping God's commands is what counts. Each person should remain in the situation they were in when God called them.
So tell me, what is Paul trying to talk to us about, especially within that culture, understanding what you guys have already heard about the culture? What is God telling them about marriage? What does he want?
Stay committed to what you have, not looking for better.
Yeah, stay committed. Stay committed to what you have, not looking for better. You look at go back to chapter 6. It's not what I want. What else does he see? From what you guys just read, what else do you see?
Being with an unbeliever doesn't give you a loophole out.
Okay. So when you look at chapter 6, I'm going to look at verse 15. He understands that in this society, in this culture, this is, sexuality is playing a very powerful role. Looking at verse 15, do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ? Shall I then take all the members of Christ and make them members of a prostitute? Never. Or do you not know that he who is joined to a prostitute becomes one body with her? For it is written, the two become one flesh. But he who is joined to the Lord becomes one spirit with him. Flee sexual immorality. Every other sin of a person commits is outside the body, but sexuality, immoral person sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you are bought with a price, so glorify God in your body. And so when he's talking about, and even if you actually jump into, just keep on going through chapter 7 here, what you find there is that they're designed for one another, and there are needs that are going to be met, and it's supposed to be met within the marriage bond. And so that's what Paul is talking about here, and it's really, really important for us to understand how important the marriage bond truly is. I don't have time to go to Ephesians. When you start reading your book, you're going to find that he comes out of Ephesians chapter 5. He's going to be talking about love and respect between a husband and a wife, how a man is going to love his wife, and how a woman needs to respect her husband. So, your homework. What is your homework for this week? Read chapter 1. Do the workbook. Discuss it with your spouse. How are you going to do that? You're going to call him?
We'll probably wait until after the summer,
Oh,
when I'm reacquainted with him.
She's
August.
gonna read it and she'll let him know what he needs.
yes. She will. Yes, she will read it. Yeah. And I know you two are going to be separated for a couple of weeks, so we'll try to figure out how to do that over the phone for you guys as well. So read chapter 1. Read chapter 1. Do the workbook. Okay, that's the part that's really going to help you the most. Working through that workbook together. When it talks about you have to do your answers and the other person has to do their answers, do it separately, then come back and talk about it. It's really easy to sit there and do your answers together. When it talks about his answers and then her answers, do it separate. And then come back and talk about those things. Because it gets interesting. Not in a bad way, but it gets interesting about perspectives. Okay? And I think there would be a lot for you to discuss between the two of you. Okay? Make sure you pick up your books. I see there's a lot of books there. So if you take a book and workbook, check off your name. I think I have lines for extra copies that I may have. If not, I will buy them for you. If there's not a copy for you, I will buy it. I will hand deliver it to you so that you can get your homework done this week, okay? So make sure you get your copy of your book, workbook. Good class, great discussion. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking about this next week with you.